Hello and welcome to Footy Classified. What a big week it has been in football, and a great show tonight as we have one of the coaching geniuses of the modern era in Luke Beveridge on the show as our special guest for the entire show. And sitting alongside him at the moment is Tom Morris, who these two haven't actually spoken to each other for 3 years. And I can tell you, James heard that if Dennis Cometti was calling tonight, he would have said it was as cold as the other side of the pillow when they came in.
It was.
But we're going to get through
getting
things.
there.
We're getting
warming
there.
up.
James Heard is with us.
Great to be here, Ed. Thank you. Looking
Tom
forward
Morris, welcome to you.
Good to be here, Ed. Thank you.
And sincerely, congratulations to you, Bevo. 350 games as a senior player and a coach. You've racked that up. You've had a lifetime involvement. We're going to talk about your family connection a bit later in the show. But welcome to Footy Classified.
Thanks, Ed. Great pleasure to be here.
Firstly, can I ask you, last week it was a loss to Collingwood by a goal in a week that was magnificent for your football club. I spoke to Peter Gordon and I said to him at one stage, when the team ran out, I said, that song would never have been sung again without you. And then all these years later, you're not only involved in a club that is no longer spoken about being on death's door, but is one of the strongest football clubs in the competition. And you've played a big role in that.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Ed. Actually, I know that you were intimately involved back then in helping the club survive as well. So, thank you for that on a national broadcast, because it has been a time to pay tribute to all the people that have had something to do with our club still being in existence and now flourishing. And obviously Peter, not just through that 89 period, but in recent times to, as I've talked about, lobby, different government bodies to help us with the redevelopment, all those things. But he's been such a great leader, as have other people at our club. So
he got more money out of the state government than the CFMEU. He was unbelievable. He left me for dead there.
Was there a moment from the night that the highlight? What was the highlight of the night for you? Obviously the result, but I mean, it was a fantastic way you played. Was there a highlight? Yeah,
I miss all the pre-game, Herdy, and I haven't seen it played back. And I saw the chair, it was almost like a throne out on the oval, and someone mentioned the throne to me, and I thought, well, that's the EJ's or Charlie Sutton's throne, but to see Bob sitting in it reading from the storybook, I'll pick up on that at some point. But I think people who experienced that have expressed that they thought that was quite magnificent.
It was indeed, and it was great to look back on the greats like Gary Dempsey, who sometimes these days gets forgotten along the way, and Bernie Quinlan's time, and of course Dougie Hawkins and the Scotty Wines, all those types of players. But into the game, you went in without Treloar, who's had a setback this week with his calf, Cody Waitman, who's a great small forward. Of course, Jones was out of the side, and Marcus Bontempelli, not only a player of his time, but one of the great players of all time. So that leads me to this. How disappointing is it for you at the moment to have your #1 draft pick down at the Brighton Hotel rather than the MCG on Friday night for that game? And I speak of Jamarra Ugle-Hagan.
Yeah, look, it's a long sort of series of events away from the club that people have become privy to. I think the challenging thing in today's society, and especially when you live a public life like Jamarra does, is everyone knows where you are, and whether it's on socials or whether it's someone texting me or ringing me to tell me that they've located him somewhere. So the expectation around his movement into the future is that it'll be a bit rubbery. He'll train in the club here and there. There'll be times when he's absolutely not expected to be in different places, and it'll be his choice. So we're working with him on that, and sometimes there's a tolerance to it. But ultimately, the way that everyone within the football club is dealing with the fact that Mara's not on campus at the moment most of the time is that let's just focus on what we can influence and control. The playing group who are totally invested, working towards winning games of footy, and our staff and their, the human capital committed to helping our sort of the health of the system. That's what we're focusing on, and Mara's stuff. We're hoping that it'll turn out, in the right space, and we'll get him back at some point. But he's got some challenges ahead of him.
Luke, how much contact do you have with Jamarra Ugle-Hagan on a day-to-day or even a week-to-week basis?
Minimal, Tom. Unless he's in at the club, I'm not in contact with him. There's a lot of people. There's some third parties who are helping Mara. The AFL have been quite vigilant on the front foot and helping the football club with trying to influence things in the right direction. And it's really important because we've only got finite resources, you know, and when you've got a list that is just over 40 and the players need your practitioners, you can't be sidetracked. So there's a number of people looking after him, providing some guidance, and you know, I'm confident that he'll find his way back.
Are you confident he'll play again for the club this year?
No, not confident. I've mentioned that, you know, some of the outcomes, they vary. You know, we'd love to just see that the week-to-week consistency of training in at the club and building up towards playing some state league footy, and then maybe there's an opportunity to play some AFL footy at the end of the year. That'd be the great outcome.
This is what he can do, isn't it? When you see him like this,
yeah.
And look, I'm not saying disappointed in him, but you're disappointed in the situation because coaching is hard enough. I mean, it's hard enough to get all your players when everything's going well on the same page. The situation just must disappoint you, the compromise it puts you and the team in.
Yeah, that's the challenge, not to become too emotional about it, Hurdy, because we know how one little pebble on the train track can derail things. And I mentioned, you know, the finite amount of people trying to work towards success, and when you lose someone like Jamarra who can be so influential, the risk is to become too emotional about it. And so we stepped off that a while ago and just we've become quite pragmatic, understanding what his challenges are, whether they originate from his upbringing or whether he's run into some new challenges. It's not uncommon for First Nations lads maybe to be predisposed to that, depending on what's happened in their life. And I'm not saying that it's an Indigenous thing. It absolutely isn't, but it could be. He's obviously brought up on the mission in Framlingham. He went to boarding school at Scotch College as a Year 9 student under our New Generation Academy. So we've always had a really strong relationship with Mara, but all that time we've been trying to understand him as well. And he's still very young, you know, he's still very young in the mind, and we're just hoping that he's still got a bright future. And
I think that's a really key point you make there, Luke, is that parents, regardless of their socio-economic background, you know, the psychologists will say until a young man is 25, the brain is still forming and all these other situations. And as you said, there are different things along the way. So it's not just by the time you get to the Western Bulldogs, it's been a lifelong experience for all people. You've had a reputation, though, of helping players out as long as they can until the time comes, and then you go, right, as you said, pragmatism comes into it. There's only so much finite resources to put into everyone, and you know the 80-20 rule comes into play pretty quickly. So will you make a decision down the road? When will a decision come for you to decide whether or not you've got not only the patience but the wherewithal to keep Jamarra on the list? Yeah, well, I think it's twofold, isn't it? We talk about the character and the integrity of the person, and how they may be a little bit immature, how it might take some time. You know, I always think of, you know, Luke Ball when you meet him as an 18-year-old back in the day, and it's like he's 30 years old. Yeah. And then when he finally comes to play for Collingwood, you know, it's like he's a wise old owl. He's 45 years old, and he absolutely isn't. And even when you think about and I reflect on how I was as an 18-year-old, I was very immature compared to some others my age. And Mara's no different, you know, and it may take him a little bit more time as a person. So, and then there's a player who, as we've seen on some of the vision, the effect and the impact that he can have on games. And he's played some really influential footy in some big games, you know, some big games against Melbourne, against the Lions, you know, historically. So it's not like he's just rolling out and dining out on say, teams that have been at the bottom of the ladder or anything like that. So he's absolutely talented, he's capable. And I definitely won't be making any decisions. What will happen is it'll be a group think, and ultimately, probably similar to what's happened with one or two players in the past, it's what's best for the player and ultimately what's best for our football club as we move into the future.
So he's contracted for next year, but based on what you're saying, you can't guarantee that it'll necessarily be there if it's best for him that he moves on and plays somewhere else. Well,
there's a lot of unknowns, and it only sort of crystallises at the end of the year. You know, at this point in time, obviously there's a lot of conjecture, and there's some media reports that, you know, clubs are interested in all that sort of thing, and that happens. But ultimately, no one's sure of that until Mara's management comes to you and say, hey, this is what's happening and this is what he'd like to happen. But we're passionate about him. We've cared for him for a long time. Yeah, there's a bit of a frustration, but we're understanding what he's going through. But we'd love him to re-engage. We'd love him to be part of our football club, and we'd love to see more of those performances in the future. And so we hold out a lot of hope.
Yep.
There's no doubt his performances have been fantastic over time and that the footy club cares for him, but do you think he's lost the trust of his teammates to some extent?
Well, I think one of the things that happens, and I think we get back to the social media side of things, is because he's had some challenges here and there, I think his teammates have found it hard to understand when he's away from the club that what could be a private thing becomes public through social channels. And so they're not sure and they're inquisitive, and at times they may get a bit frustrated because they're working so hard. But the realisation that we're not dealing with, we're dealing with someone who we've got to try to understand from a maturity perspective. We've got to understand that he's, as far as the limelight goes and dealing with notoriety and fame to a degree, he's going through a period where he's challenged with that and he's trying to work through it. And so his teammates have understood that more, and they, because they're special human beings with their big hearts, now all they're trying to do is help him in life more than trying to get him back as a teammate.
Yep.
It is an interesting situation, and this is not specific to Jamarra, but I've heard of kids along the journey who, in the old days, would hide under the bed if something happened. He wouldn't come out for a week. Now they're going, I've got 50,000 more followers. That's fantastic, and that's what happens these days. So sometimes you see you've got the football club over here being all straight up and down, and then you've got all these other life forces over here saying, wow, this is unbelievable. Look how many people are going to get a drink card here, or are going to get that, or you're going to get whatever at a nightclub.
They still have drink cards, Ed?
No, they don't. They have other things these days, unbelievably. But it's the same theory, if you like. Stick with the old guy.
Ask one more question, though.
One last
Has he lost your trust at all?
Not trust. I mean, I've tried not to use that. Well, I have been asked that before, and we moved past that a while ago, because I think once it becomes uncertain, and if you start down that route of not trusting, it kind of evokes this thought process, okay, do I actually know everything here? If I'm not trusting, I better make sure I've got all the information.
Exactly.
I know the facts. And so you go in search of that. And so the more I've found out, the more I know about Mara, the more I understand. But the more I feel like, there's definite, there's hope, and there's definitely an opportunity that he's going to come back and play AFL footy, and I just hope it's with us.
Yeah.
Luke, we'll take a break. You've given us a fascinating insight into the complexities of being a modern AFL coach. And that's one player.
Exactly, yeah.
We'll take a break. When we come back, the complexities of an AFL coach and the AFL media, as we come back and revisit 3 years ago the press conference between Tom Morris and Luke right after this.
You've got the nerve to ask me a question and even be here. So you've been preying on us the last 2 times. You barracked for Melbourne, Tom Morris, been preying on us. You've been opening us up, causing turmoil within our football club by declaring our team well before it needs to be declared. Is that the way Fox want you to operate? Is that what you're doing? Is that the gutter journalist you want to be? I can't. Are you proud of yourself?
Yeah, absolutely.
You're proud of yourself.
Yeah.
Now, this bloke here, and what he's doing, he's giving everyone else a bad name. You're an embarrassment to what you do, mate. You're an embarrassment.
Tough words indeed from the coach, Luke Beveridge. There's an old saying in journalism that if people want a story out there, it's called PR. If they don't want it out, it's called news. And there's always that fine balance between the media and the teams themselves, one that I've had to straddle barbed wire over the journey myself at various stages. You've had a few people living in your front yard
Just for a couple of years
there.
A couple of years.
First of all, Tom, I'll go to you. What's your reaction when you see that and you've got Luke sitting alongside you now?
Well, I've seen that a number of times the past 3 years. My reaction to that is very clear, and that is that Luke apologised the next day, and any angst that may not have been felt between Luke and myself over the last 3 years hasn't been from my end. You mentioned it before already. There's been a lot of journalists that have copped it from coaches over the years. So I accepted that apology the next day, and I'm very keen to move on from that because I think there's a lot of other footy stories to talk about. I don't know how Luke feels, but there's no angst from me to Luke, put it that way. And there wasn't at the time either, to be fair.
And even better was the chopper-red moustache going there at that stage too. Did you look fearsome?
He did. I was scared of it.
Let's go back 3 years. I mean, clearly you had a burr under your saddle at that stage and something had really got under your skin. Clearly.
Yeah, I mean, if I had my time back, I would have probably shaved that moustache off before the start of the season. Look, I think the detail, the lead up to that game, what happened, and the tension, obviously, that's evident in my voice there and my emotions. Look, that might come out one day, but I definitely didn't come on the show tonight to discuss that. I at the time, I apologised quite broadly, actually. And it was a difficult time, because there was a lot of things going on behind the scenes. There was a lot of things going on, and obviously, with some history in regards to Tom. But I don't want to back over it. We've moved on from it, and so I think you live and learn.
Bevo, can we move on? Can you and I move on so that we're not best friends, clearly, but can we have a professional relationship so I can come to your press conferences and report on the Western Bulldogs?
Yeah, well, I mean, I know I tried to kick you out of that one, but I think that the important thing that as far as moving on goes is, like, you were, for me at the time, you were the antagonist, because I hadn't done anything other than at that press conference, obviously fire up.
Yeah.
So letting you off for what led into that, time heals all wounds, but we've still got that time in the future. It's not now. I don't think I've seen you since it.
No, and that's been deliberate from my end as well, because I wanted to give it that time. But clearly we're never going to agree. We're going to actually probably, hopefully, agree to disagree on the lead up to that.
So I just hope that we
can have a professional relationship.
People may not know. What was the story?
Well, there were two stories in the lead up. One was Ryan Gardner being dropped.
But does it matter? I mean, this is what I'm saying. Like, tonight's not about that detail. No. It's important that, I mean, it's the first time I've been on Channel 9, probably, since a couple of antagonists have moved over to Channel 7, to be honest.
Yeah.
And so I've come here tonight to definitely interact and hopefully provide something of value. But the detail in what happened, that doesn't help me. It doesn't help our footy club. I don't think it really helps you, Tom, and I just don't think we should go there. I think it's a story for another day, and if someone wants to make inquiries outside of the show tonight, by all means, but it shouldn't be aired tonight.
Look, I just want to ask you a question about the antagonists on the other channel, or antagonists or people in the media. Do you think they understand when some people talk about you or your coaching, the effect it has on you as a person?
Well, I'm not sure. I think...
So does it have an effect on you as a person? Obviously.
Yeah, well, we as probably more senior coaches are in the public eye a little bit more, try to get our head around if they do understand how they keep doing it.
Yep.
So... and there, we probably put things in little boxes and we deal with them in our own, particular way as far as not becoming emotive about it and moving on. And part of the process there is to develop that apathy towards the publicity that you do get, good, bad or otherwise. And the longer you're in it, the better you are at it. And that's where I've sort of been on record saying it's really difficult for the brand new coaches because they're not used to it. The drama of just losing one game and what that turns into these days. So that challenge never goes away. And you continue to work through it and hopefully it doesn't affect too many around you. in an emotional way.
And I think the skill of being in the public eye, being a coach, is being able to just not take it personally. I mean, it's very hard sometimes, but you just got to say, I'm not taking it personally and let it go, because if you don't, it affects the way you coach, it affects the way you react.
Yeah, and I think sometimes the media departments have got to understand that when you have a press conference, the unwritten rule is you can ask whatever you like and you can respond whichever way you like, and that's it. But you open it up, and it's the opportunity to have a full and frank discussion on matters. And that doesn't mean that if you want to blow up, you can come back. You can return serve. Yeah. And anyway,
you mightn't have the choice to come back when your club sacks you, though.
Exactly, there's always that.
Look, I know we're not going to be close ever, but I appreciate you coming on tonight and speaking honestly about it.
Good on you guys. All right, well, let's move on. What I want to do, though, is move on to how much football means to you. Let's roll the videotape, because we've got people may not realise that this man going out to win a record 4 premierships in a row is Jack Beveridge, the grandfather. 148 games for Collingwood, 31 with West Perth, 4 premierships with the Pies and 1 with West Perth. And then, of course, there's this man, John Beveridge, who was the recruiting guru at St Kilda for years and one of the best people he'd ever meet in football. As I mentioned, 350 games for Luke Beveridge as a coach and a player. He started off his coaching career down in the amateurs at St Bede's, and for the first time in the history of amateur football, won the C grade, B grade and A grade premierships in 3 consecutive years. It's meant a lot to you. And I didn't even mention the time you were assistant coach at Hawthorn, you're assistant coach in a premiership year at Collingwood in 2010, which just added the Beveridge history at the Collingwood Football Club, where he was deeply loved as a player. Then you went off back to the education department.
Austrac, yeah.
Yeah, did that. And then, but football obviously is ingrained in you. What does it mean to you?
Like you could say, like all of us, as a 5-year-old, taking speckies on mum and dad's bed and dreaming of one day, playing for one of the VFL teams at the time. I've always been passionate about the game, ridden the emotions, whether you're playing under 11s or you go into the senior ranks. And it's shaped me as a human being, who I am as a man, and through all the trials and tribulations of playing. And I'm very lucky as a coach. My experience with St Bede's Mentone was just quite incredible, and I even, in my first really 10 years of coaching, I was involved in 8 grand finals, with all the contributors, and Collingwood was one of those, and Hawthorn were 3 of those, and the Dogs were one of those, and St Bede's were 3 of those, and so I got to a point where I just thought, how blessed am I, with this game, this code, the one that we love so much in our land, in our domestic game, for me to be lucky enough and fortunate enough to have so much success from a coaching point of view more than anything. I love the people in it. I love the energy and the selflessness in the game, and that's where the people who I've worked with for so many years, I just admire so much. And I don't know how long I'll, stay in the game, but as far as full-time work goes, but I just absolutely love it.
Will you be at the club next year, do you think? In an ideal world, are you coaching the Western Bulldogs in 2026?
Well, possibly. We've taken probably a week-by-week approach to what the future might look like, and that's really just to make sure that we get it right for everyone. And I think there'll be a point where it doesn't, regardless of whether or not you have success or not, and I sometimes say, the playing group have just turned over quite dramatically, and our staff have, but I think you can still almost wear out your welcome at an establishment as well. And if it gets to that point where I'm sort of feeling that, or even the club is feeling that.
Are you feeling that right now?
Not at all. No, I definitely don't. There's a real energy and an optimism in the footy club, and it's coming from all different angles, but mostly from the people who are with us.
You could actually sense it on Friday night. I was there, obviously watching, as a Collingwood supporter, but watching as a football lover. And you could really feel a great energy amongst the Bulldogs people going into the ground, even afterwards, right through it. I thought it was the most optimistic I've seen the Bulldogs, other than when you won the flag that time. I thought there was a real energy around the place.
Yeah, it's definitely there, and I probably feel it every year, you know, until you don't, you know, and sometimes, you know, whether it's luck or the variables in the game can bite you a little bit. But the promise is there. The new characters and the new players who have come through, there's promise. We felt like we made some significant inroads last year as to where we wanted to go, but that season's gone now, and we've probably got a little bit of a look at the capacity and capability within our ranks with some new boys coming in. So that promise, we hope we can bring it to fruition. But it remains to be seen. I mean, the main message for me internally and even publicly is, as long as our playing group know how invested I am, as long as our people know how much I care for them and I value what they do for me and the players and the club, that's all that matters, and that's definitely in the right place.
Look, let's go through a couple of some broader issues, OK? The drugs code, we're seeing that the AFL and the AFLPA are talking about it. My position has changed over the years. I think today it is more important to have an intervention early on players. So therefore, I think that we should be doing more testing, etc. What's your position on it? Is it fit for purpose at the moment, do you think?
I've probably over the years been a little bit vocal. I was even vocal on this the last time I was on this show. I think I stirred someone up on this show a while ago about it with the USADA side of things. Well, that was during the challenging times with the Bombers as well, and ultimately. I think most people don't realise there's two codes. You know, there's the performance enhancing code and there's the illicit code. Now, the illicit code is the one that the Players Association signed up to with the AFL. And if you suggest that should just go, people say, what are you talking about? How can it just go? Well, most codes don't have one. You know, whereas the Players Association, the Players Union, signed the players up to it. Now, I think we all feel, as you're alluding to, Ed, that it gets in the way of clubs helping their own players. Because the mental health model, if a player's ever struggling, you know, in a clinical sense with the game and in life, the three strikes policy doesn't exist for them, you know, and you can't help them because it's secretive. Whereas, like, I'll know that someone's got a hamstring injury, they're out for 4 weeks or 3 weeks, but I won't know that young Billy's he's rolling around the corner and finding it hard to deal with life and is taking illicit drugs to cope. I won't know that.
That's exactly, you've articulated it beautifully, where we've got to find that balance. And the misnomer that clubs will throw players out, everyone involved in football loves to play.
Absolutely.
And you give them as many chances as you can. And we've heard all that through the course of the night. Jeff Walsh looks like he's going into a more significant role alongside Laura Kane. My understanding is that the clubs have been frustrated just getting their point of view through, because Laura Kane's pretty busy with everything else that's going on. But
frustrated's putting it lightly, I reckon. They've been angry at certain times.
OK, well, that's it. We'll underline it. That's exactly it. Well, they've responded. And Jeff Walsh, who you've worked with and I've worked with and we've all worked with, is a pretty good operator.
Well, he is, you know, and while she's been involved at Clubland for such a long period of time, I'm actually surprised he's got the juice to perform that function, because he's really put in, you know, as far as his wisdom and his time and his energy. So I think it's a great appointment because he understands the struggles, like he understands what happens in Clubland and where, you know, the politicking and even the consultation process isn't necessarily a consultation process. So that's great. And look, I think Laura does a magnificent job, but the thing is, with the constituents in the competition and how many stakeholders you have to deal with, you need a lot of people to work at the AFL to handle all that. So the more the merrier, as long as the collaborative functions within City Hall are working, you know, appropriately and properly to get the best outcome for the game.
He's a coach's man, Walshy, so you'll get a good hearing. Heard it?
The soft cap, I mean, we've been speaking about it before the season started, but it's just nowhere near where it should be. I mean, how much more money do you think the clubs need in terms of coaching and doctors and that should go in the soft cap that's just not there, and affecting the way the players get prepared, but also affecting the lives and careers of coaches and people around the club?
Yeah, look, it's difficult for me to put a figure on it. Now, the actuaries need to come in and work out, you know, what it'd actually be, you know, because even you talk about human capital, but people who can help others. And I've experienced it in recent times, like the appointment of Matthew Egan after the Peter Jackson external review has just been a godsend. You know, Ego and what he's done at our club in a short period of time, you notice the difference.
A great person.
He's a great person, and he's got so much energy, and it's been brilliant. It's really helped me. And when you think of what the soft cap did to the coaching roster, all that does, because it's a tertiary model, like it's a collegiate model. There's so many players who need tending to, and you're there a fair bit.
Yeah.
So the more resources you have, the better off the players are, and the less other people are spread thin. So it needs to continue to grow, not just because of the time value of money, basically to make up for the cuts historically. We're not there yet.
Yeah. And we're a long way where we were behind in COVID as well, and we will be behind even in 2027. State of Origin football, Luke, if Marcus Bontempelli comes to you with Aaron Norton and they sit down in your office in February and they say, we want to play State of Origin football in 3 weeks' time, how quickly do you say yes to that question?
I'd be excited for them. You know, that's a great thing to have on your CV and a great milestone in your career. So I'd absolutely be excited for them.
What about if it was, if I can just jump in because time is of the essence, what about if it was pre-season and part of the pre-season build-up that they had State of Origin football?
I wouldn't mind it. Yeah. If it replaces, if they just don't play in one of the games that you're playing in, I'd be good with it.
Every year? Or every second year?
Yeah, I'd be okay with it. I think since the competition went national, right, there's already a tribal aspect to the competition already. You know, you got 2 teams in 4 different states and 10 teams in Victoria. So when a Victorian team plays, say, at the Adelaide Crows at the Adelaide Oval, it's tribal. You know, it's like state versus state. So I think with State of Origin now, as much as it may have a place, the tribalism may not be as significant as it was back in the VFL, Sandful, Waffle, you know, that sort of rivalry when there wasn't a national competition. So I think it's not a moot point and it's worth exploring, but I just don't think it's got the value that it used to.
Well, there's a bit of work ahead on that one.
There we go.
Stand by for early next year, maybe, pre-season. A very big extravaganza.
Right.
Yeah.
And international rules will be in maybe as well.
You behind it as well.
That was good time for a break. Who would have thought? Eh? We're going to take a break, and as we go to the break, there's 2 coaches, and they're going to stand up at the plasma screen and take us through the match of the night on Friday night. It's going to be an absolute beauty. James Hird and Luke Beveridge.
Isaac Quaynor. My time in South Australia was spent exploring Adelaide and all the best spots in the city. There's honestly so much happening, with events, pop-up art exhibitions to go to, laneways with small bars, and some of the tastiest food I've ever tried, and I'm a real foodie. In less than an hour's drive from Adelaide, you can be in a world-class wine region, sipping on some of the finest drops, and obviously enjoying breathtaking views along the way. The hospitality was an absolute standout and something everyone will experience when visiting.
Yes, Gather Round just a fortnight away, and don't forget on the Tuesday of Gather Round, it's going to be this show. Footy Classified hits Gather Round in the Barossa, if you don't mind. Hirdy, we'll get you a nice little Shiraz there for you, mate. Something nice for you to go down there. James Hird, Rory Sloane, Nathan Brown, Tommy Morris will be there. Isaac Rankin is returning to the stage to sing. We've got great acts. It is going to be a fantastic night amongst the vines. Golden hour there in the Barossa Valley. Cannot wait. And there's an opportunity for everyone to win this, a Mitsubishi Motors. They're back. Just like last year, we were giving away the brand new Mitsubishi Triton GSR 4-wheel drive auto. $70,000 worth of car, if you don't mind, in Yamabuki Orange. That's what they call that, Yamabuki Orange. Electrical roll top, accessory pack, etc. Thanks to our friends at Mitsubishi Motors, their Australian headquarters in Adelaide, South Australia. Now it's time for Coach's Corner.
25 minutes to make a name for yourself like you never made before.
Yes, thank you, Ed. Well, we've got Luke Beveridge here, and obviously the Bulldogs play Carlton on Friday night. Now, Luke, I want you to give away some of your secrets and talk about how we're going to beat the Blues. The Blues are a fantastic clearance team. Paddy Cripps is one of the best in the competition. One of the things that you have to stop with the Blues is you want to try and match them around those clearances. But how do you stop them coming out the front of the stoppage?
Yeah, well, I think, Tom De Koning was a powerhouse last week, and some of those clearances were forced by him, and obviously Patrick and his big body and what he can do with his first-hand side of it. So, yeah, you've got to keep an eye on him because he gets them going. He fed Petreski, Seaton and Fisher about 7 or 8 years ago in a midfield that wasn't that experienced. So we've actually faced it firsthand. So that's part of it, and there's got some good depth through there. We'll have some layers we'll need to.
Yep. Paddy Cripps, obviously, I think your philosophy is not to tag. He plays in the ruck. What will you do when he goes in the ruck?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I mean, with your second ruck, Louis Young rucked in the game after this, and you see him here rucking against Nankervis, whereas mostly Weddle last week.
Yeah.
So, look, whether that's to get away from a tag, and, sometimes we choose to, but our default is probably not to go that way. But we'll make that decision as the week goes on. But, I think with the power of, Hewitt played really well last week. Walsh is getting going again. I just mentioned the influence of Tom De Koning.
Yeah.
Our brigade who goes through there will need to be in sync and have a real appetite in there.
And one of the ways that Hawthorn attacked them last week was trying to run the ball out through handball with their speed and their hands. Is that something you'll use this weekend against the Blues?
Well, every week, if there's an opportunity to do that, you take it if it presents itself. Teams are becoming better at the pressure game, definitely at the source. And, Carlton are reasonable. They're pretty good at it on their day. But it just, in the possession gain, turnover parts of the game, Hawthorn got on top. Whereas, as we're saying, at the source, Carlton were quite prolific. So we'll take what they give us. And I know their pressure game will be high, so we'll need to absorb some of that.
They were good with their pressure last week, much better than the first round. Will you show any of these clips to your team? I mean, how much of the opposition do you show to your team during the week?
Not much. We'll show them the systematic things that we feel they do defensively and offensively. And we'll have a focus on structure and what the numbers game looks like at the stoppage, the role-based side of the game. But we'll bring it back to our strengths and what we do and how that will hopefully force the envelope against Carlton and not preoccupy with our players with too much.
Yeah, absolutely. Against when they played Carlton, Richmond left a player behind the ball and let Carlton send one up to the stoppage. Carlton's forward entries haven't been great this year, which allows you to set up your attack from defence. Is that something, Bailey Dale, fantastic kick. You've also got other very good kicks from your back line. How will you play that?
Yeah, well, I think you look at that and you've got to give, say, the Hawks and even the Tigers credit from the previous week where it's long balls coming in because teammates of Carlton are covered. The decision-making of the Carlton players might be a bit rushed because of what the opposition are doing. So we've got to do our best to manufacture that so we put the Blues under pressure. But ultimately, if there's a drop-off type player or situation to mark some of those balls, we've got some players who set up in our backline who can do that. We'll need to alert our players to the fact that that's really important.
Yeah. Well, Rory Lobb in the intercept role too, I think will be pretty important for you. Sam Darcy, Aaron Norton, Jacob Wiedering. That'll be an interesting battle where Wiedering goes, whether he matches up on Sam Darcy or tries to cut off and intercept. These two, how do you put them into effect, Norton and Darcy this week?
Yeah, well, it becomes a bit easier when there's just the two key forwards. They seem to make sure they're not in each other's way a little bit. But the structural aspect of whether you've got 5 forwards or 6 forwards and how they stay relevant, how they assimilate, how they connect, the north-south aspect of positioning rather than east-west, all those things come into the coaching side of it. And then, Aaron and Sam, as he's maturing, are getting better at organising and understanding where each other are. So hopefully we provide them with some good service and we can capitalise on it.
With the injuries you've got, the performance against... You must have been very proud of the way they performed against Collingwood. What's the expectation this week against the Blues?
Yeah, I'm proud, but, in a sense, disappointed as well. We felt Collingwood on the night definitely had the upper hand in different areas, but it was a missed opportunity. So our expectation is that we'll be at our best and we'll... we've looked at Carlton in as far as the coaching side of it goes, and we respect what they do, who they are, the successes of yesteryear as far as their form line, maybe the year before last and the early parts of last year. We think that capacity and capability is definitely there. So, we need growth again,
Yep.
you know, from our players playing roles and in all the lines. So we'll search for that this week.
Ed, we don't have much more, but I think that's a pretty good understanding of what's going to happen this weekend against the Blues from Western Bulldogs' point of view, Footscray point of view.
Yeah, well done. And Luke, come back over. We're going to have news or noise. You can get stuck into this one. You can be a journo for a little while and enjoy yourself. We'll take a break. News or noise next on Footy Classified. Welcome back, and don't forget Sunday. The Sunday Footy Show is on fire at the moment, 10 o'clock every Sunday morning, all the highlights and the handball and the fun of the game as well. Then Footy Furnace, James Hurd, Jimmy Bartell and Tommy Morris give you the final word on each round of football and set the agenda. Set the agenda. That's the real agenda setter there. The Footy Furnace. Original and the best is what I say. Good luck, guys. Time for news or noise.
All right, news or noise, let's get straight to it. Luke, I'll go to you first. News or noise, tagging is overrated in AFL football.
Eddie combined with a bit of both.
Yeah, okay. Well, can I just ask, why? Why is that? Why do some coaches love it and some coaches are against it?
I think, you know, you can have different levels of run with. You know, you can take care of players at stoppage. But if you go to outside of that and how that affects your team defence, there's significant considerations.
Hurdy, news or noise, Simon Goodwin made a mistake in his media conference on Sunday.
News, only because I think Max came out and said that he rather it didn't happen, but no harm done. I mean, look, what I loved is the relationship those two have. Simon was trying to protect his player. Max came out and said, I don't need protecting. It's news, but I don't think any harm.
It was a positive mistake, wasn't it?
It was a positive mistake, yeah. Yep.
Eddie, news or noise, we as an industry need to back off Harley Reid.
No, as an industry, just report what's actually happening. That's it. Don't have to beat it up, but report what's going on. And Harley's got to get a kick and not give the bird to the crowd so the attention doesn't go on him. It's pretty simple in this game. Get a kick. What did Barras used to say? Healy, give me kicks and I'll leave you alone. That's all you need to do.
Jared still talks about that as well.
He does.
The news tonight, of course, is that Harley Reid got a $1,000 fine for flipping the bird. So that's confirmed this evening.
Well, because they're going for him now. I mean, Muggs and the crowd are going to come down. Everyone's going to G him up while he actually responds.
Of course they will. Luke, news or noise, we'll see Marcus Bontempelli back by round 6.
Yeah, it's news. He's around about then, hopefully.
That'd be good if he can get back. Hurdy, news or noise, North Melbourne can win a flag within 3 years.
That's noise. No, I don't think so. I think they could get to the finals, maybe win a final, but not a grand final. To win a grand final, as Luke knows, you've got to have consistent performances, win finals, have disappointment, they would be very, very lucky or fluky to get there.
Eddie, news or noise, the new Queensland Stadium is great for footy.
They'll have to get a new name because there's only one Victoria Park. OK, so let's get that on the agenda right now, OK? It is unbelievable. This is as big as news for AFL football because this stadium will be the AFL stadium going forward after the Olympics and cricket. It'll replace the Gabba, but it is unbelievable now when you look at it that the AFL, if they get Tassie up and going, will have the best sporting infrastructure for any sport basically in the world. It is unbelievable. That decision today is great for the Olympics, but it is the best decision for the growth of the game in Queensland. That is a backflip moment for the AFL. And well done to Dills and all the team at the AFL who've been right in working, and my old mate Greg Swan up in Sydney and Andrew Wellington as well, the president of the Brisbane Lions. That is a sensational moment in footy today. 63,000
seat stadium. They expect to be playing footy on it in 2033, but the Brisbane Lions aren't ruling out playing footy on it early in 2032, before the Olympics. So just watch that space. That's a 7-year story that will evolve.
Doesn't matter. We're going to get on there eventually. It is unbelievable. We'll take a break when we come back. Lexus of Blackburn. Ho-ho, Andrew Moore and the team, the player of the round. And wasn't there some fantastic football over the weekend? Somebody is going to be driving away the magnificent Lexus. They are the best cars. They're like spaceships inside. They're magnificent. Right after this. The mighty Lexus team at Lexus of Blackburn. Look at those handballs. Not only are the best in the business, and magnificent coffee out there as well. And they're building, you can see it from Mars. That's what Elon Musk is putting up satellites.
Have you been to Mars, haven't you?
Probably has.
Some would say. Kevin Chetty used to talk about Martians, didn't he?
Yes.
But no, great stuff. And not only that, but here's the car that is up for grabs for the Player of the Year. Isaac Heaney's got one of these already from last year. Now we've got the LBX two-wheel drive luxury model. Over $55,000, includes all on-road costs, 12 months, Victorian registration. Absolutely magnificent. We're going to go to you, Tommy. First up, who was your player of the round?
My player of the round was Chad Warner, and the news tonight around Chad Warner is that Sydney, as well as his teammates, are confident that he'll stay, more likely on a short-term deal.
You said that a couple of weeks ago, didn't you?
He did. He had an unbelievable game on the weekend over in Perth. 26 disposals, 22 of them kicks, kicked a goal as well. Him and his brother both copped it from over the fence, actually, and they responded in the perfect way, and that was a win and a dominant performance from Chad Warner, who is going from strength to strength.
Luke Beveridge, tell us about this bloke, Sam Darcy. I've seen him since he was a little boy. He was training and doing running and goal kicking and dietary things when he was about 5.
Yeah, he's a committed and passionate young man and absolutely dedicated to being at his best. Pretty hard for the key backs to combat that highest reach when he jumps at the same time. So he had an outstanding game against the Pies on Friday night.
And what about his pedigree? You talk about his father being Luke Darcy, All-Australian captain of the club, David Darcy, Victorian player, but on his mum's side, David Shaw, two-time Essendon Premiership player and a Premiership president.
President in '93, we won the Premiership.
Yeah, it was. And a great man, David Shaw, former AFL commissioner as well. All right,
Zach Merritt, Hootie, for you?
No, Zach Merritt's this man.
Yeah, Zach Merritt is my player of the round. He needs some more coming with him. I mean, he had a fantastic game, 36 possessions and 4 goals in a team that, well, got beaten by 10 goals. It was a pretty disappointing performance by the Bombers, but this man stood up and I reckon he just wishes a few more would come with him at the moment.
Will he get sick of it at some stage if they don't come with him?
Oh, that's
a big question.
I don't know. Maybe that's for another show, Ed.
He's got 2 more years remaining in his contract after this. In 2027.
Yeah, well, he's the captain of the club. Yeah. I liked the performance of Tristan Sherry. Sensational in the ruck up against Max Gawn. And then to lead North Melbourne, the big man. When you get a big ruckman like this, it's just magnificent. Look at that for a goal. Just absolutely... Oh, Mark, sorry, it didn't go through for a goal, but set it up. How fantastic is that to have a big player in there with that young midfield coming through, and there's real belief around this
And
bloke.
6 goals in a row in the last quarter from his tap work right out of the middle. It was pretty amazing.
OK, and our winner is Sam Darcy. So well done to you. You can tell him.
Surprise. Sammy, well done.
You put him in the driver's seat for the magnificent Lexus from Lexus of Blackburn. Fantastic stuff. We'll come back and finish off what's been a sensational footy classified right after this with our tab top 3. Time for the Tab Top 3. Thanks to everyone at Tab. Gil McLaughlin finally kicking in for us. That's fantastic. Good on you, Gil. The Tab Top 3. Let's go, Tom. So we want your tip for the weekend. What's going to be the headline?
My headline for this weekend, my tip is for Harley Reid to win the Glendenning Allen medal. The game over there in Perth, the Derby, West Coast versus Fremantle. Massive match. Fremantle have had...
So for him to win that means West Coast are going to have to beat Fremantle, and that would be...
I'm tipping the Eagles.
That is going to be 2 big stories.
I'm tipping the Eagles, Hurdy. They were good against the Brisbane Lions early days.
I suppose they get 20 blokes out in the ground.
And Harley Reid will be best on ground, and we'll be talking about him for the right reasons.
That'll be the biggest performance by the Eagles since Hotel California, that one.
That's before my time, Eddie.
I'm going long on if the Hawks beat WWOS down in Tassie, which is going to be the game of the year for me so far. The winner of that game will win the premiership.
Oh, round 3.
Round 3. There you go.
Jeez.
Sorry, Luke.
OK. Wow. All right, well, I'm saying this. This is the opportunity for Tasmania to decide whether they actually want to be in the competition and want to stop whinging about everything that's going on, OK? Hawthorn at GWS sets the scene for Tassie. It must be packed to the gunnels, and they should be down at the AFL rolling out everything.
Hang on. How many people can get this? It's only 15,000
stadium, we'll get 15,000, but I want to have 5,000 outside the ground. I want to have big screens outside. I want to have a... What's that?
Where will Ramen be? Outside, inside?
Mascot. The mascot.
The mascot. But the mascot should be there, walking around, doing autographs and photos. This should be the start of the AFL game, bang into Tasmania.
Yeah. Good.
Luke, you got something?
Can I stick to your Eagles theme?
Yes.
A bit of a desperado.
Yes.
Big ticket item, jumper clash, GWS Hawthorn.
Yes.
Always is.
Really?
So look out for it.
Well, we saw it on the weekend. Why does Adelaide, who normally wear blue, wear red against Essendon? There's 2 colours when you play Essendon. Red and black. Don't wear them.
Yep, true.
Pretty simple. So what do we have to get? So they should wear the blue-coloured one, GWS.
It needs to be a lot of white in GWS's jumper. Yeah. It's either the grey and the brown sort of clash a bit, or it's the yellow and the gold.
They could have a black one, couldn't they? All black, the GWS.
No, GWS, yeah.
The orange and the
black
gold.
one. Yeah.
Black one.
You picked a topic that Eddie loves talking about here, Bevo. We're here all night.
Have you got a clash jumper at Collingwood?
That's right, yeah. Don't clash with us. That'll do us. Bevo, thanks for coming in, mate. We really enjoyed that.
Thanks,
I appreciate it.
I'm
Thanks
glad to have you back at Channel 9 now. As we said, got rid of the list cloggers, got a nice young list, and we're all go here.
I'm just glad I survived.
Not yet.
We're not yet.
So far.
Not done yet. When the cameras go off, we might just keep one rolling over in the corner. Thanks, everyone, for being with us. Big weekend of football coming up, and thanks again to Luke Beveridge for joining us on Footy Classified.